John, may I ask you something honestly?
Of course.
Why do Catholics speak about marriage with such gravity, almost as if it were something trembling, sacred, untouchable?
Because for us, marriage is not simply a decision between two people. It is a mystery in which God Himself becomes involved.
But isn't marriage simply love between a man and a woman?
It is love, yes, but not love alone. From the beginning of Scripture, marriage is presented as God's design. It is not good for the man to be alone. Marriage is born not from human invention, but from divine will.
So God stands at the origin of marriage?
Not only at the origin, at the center.
Yet human love is fragile. People change. Feelings fade.
That is exactly why Christ speaks so strongly. What God has joined together, let no one separate. Those are not merely moral instructions. They reveal something terrifying and beautiful. In a true marriage, God acts, and no human power may undo what God has done.
That sounds overwhelming.
It is. Christian marriage is not built on emotion alone, but on a love willing to suffer, forgive, endure, and rise again. St. Paul does not say, "Husbands, admire your wives." He says, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church."
As Christ loved, meaning sacrificially?
Yes, to love even when it costs everything.
Why must it happen in a church? Why not somewhere personal or symbolic?
Because marriage is never purely private. It belongs to God, and it belongs to the church. The gathered community is not decoration. They are witnesses to a covenant that changes reality.
Why are some weddings celebrated during the Mass?
Because the Eucharist is the supreme act of love, Christ giving Himself completely. The spouses unite their self-gift with His. Their marriage becomes anchored in the cross.
Tell me then, what truly happens at a Catholic wedding?
Everything is centered on one mystery. God seals a covenant between two souls. But watch carefully. The Church teaches through signs.
When does this divine mystery actually begin? At what point does marriage become something more than human?
At a moment so simple, it can almost be missed. Two voices, two acts of freedom. I take you. In those words, heaven listens. God seals. A covenant is born that did not exist before.
So those vows are not symbolic?
No, they create something irreversible. That is why the Church asks first, have you come here freely? Because without freedom, love cannot exist. And without love, marriage cannot exist.
And the rings? Why such emphasis on them?
Because the human heart needs visible reminders of invisible truths. A circle without end. A promise without condition. A sign that whispers every day, I am yours.
But what does God actually give the couple?
Not a life without storms, but grace within every storm. Strength when patience fails. Mercy when wounds appear. Hope when darkness comes. And the mysterious ability to begin again.
So marriage is not merely companionship?
No, it becomes a path of sanctification. Two imperfect people, slowly learning divine love. Daily sacrifices becoming prayers. Forgiveness becoming holiness. Ordinary life becoming sacred ground.
Why does the Church connect marriage so deeply with children?
Because authentic love is never closed in upon itself. Love naturally desires to give life. Children are not accessories to marriage. They are its most luminous gift.
Many couples today marry legally. How is sacramental marriage different?
A civil union is recognized by society. A sacramental marriage is sealed by God. One may be dissolved by human decision. The other belongs to eternity.
And what sustains such permanence? Human strength seems insufficient.
Exactly. Christian marriage is never merely two. It is husband, wife, and God. When they weaken, He strengthens. When they wound, He heals. When they despair, He restores.
And this bond truly cannot be broken?
Not by human will, because its foundation is not emotion, not law, but God's fidelity. Only death ends what God has united.
John, I think I understand now why Catholics speak of marriage with such reverence. For you, it is not merely choosing each other. It is daring to let God bind your lives together.
Yes, marriage is the courage to say, we entrust our love to God. Matrimony is the sacrament in which God unites a man and a woman in an indissoluble covenant, fills their love with His grace, and makes their union a living reflection of Christ's love in the world.